everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. If you are new, welcome. My name is Courtney and I'm a final year PhD student at Imperial College London. And in today's video, I want to cover interview tips when preparing for your PhD or graduate school interview. Preparing for interviews for graduate school, whether it be for master's or PhD program, can be a bit nerve-wracking. But what I want to tell you first and foremost is to relax a little bit. You have gotten this far. If you've gotten an interview, you've impressed them already. What you've put on paper has already told them that you deserve to be in their class. But what your interview is going to do is really bring it all together to show them that what is on paper actually exists as a person, and your responsibility in the interview is to bring everything together and sell them for one final time. So let's get into the video, which I'm going to break down into two parts. One, I'm going to be talking about how to prepare for the interview. And then secondly, I'm going to be giving you a tip on a framework to use for answering your questions. Today, we won't necessarily go into specific questions. If you are interested in a video in that, I can do a separate one. Just let me know down below. But what I'm really going to focus on is to give you that tool to make sure that no matter what interview you go to, you understand how to answer those questions. So as I said, your interview is really about bringing everything that you have put on paper, your background, your skills, your expertise into the interview and bringing these into your response. So my first step in terms of preparing for the interview is to reread the documents that you submitted. So for a PhD, this can be your proposal, your personal statement, any other documents that you have submitted, your CVs, etc. Now, why you want to do this is you want to make sure that everything that you're going to say in the interview is coherent. If you've talked about certain skills you have, you want to make sure that you know what you've talked about, but more specifically to the research, you want to make sure that you have a good understanding of what you've laid out in your PhD proposal, what you've laid out in your research proposal, whether that be master's or whatever, and you can clearly articulate that in the interview. So refresh yourself on the key terms in your proposal and documents that you submitted, but also brush up your knowledge a little bit and look at what has developed so far since your application, what has developed in the field, any further gaps that have emerged. And bringing that, it shows the interviewer, your potential supervisor and the board and the interview panel that you're actually really passionate about the topic and keeping abreast as a researcher would do. That is for the PhD, but for example, a master's taught program, what you want to review is the course material, what the course outline is, the prospectus for the course. So in that sense, for the master's program, you would want to refresh yourself on what the specific courses are, if there are any that you're particularly interested in and why you're interested in those. And then these are things that you can talk about in the interview to kind of bring the story of yourself and how you are suited for that program to life. So my second tip in terms of preparing for the interview would be to refresh yourself on your motivations so that when you ask questions like why you want to do a PhD, why you want to do this program, it's quite clear to the interview panel what your motivations are and that they are sound motivations. They're really interested in why does he or she want to be here and what can they offer? What perspectives can they bring to the course? So if your motivations are based on something you've experienced in the past and that fresh perspective that you can bring, make sure you make that clear. But also on that point of motivation, also have an idea of what your future goals are. This is a good way to kind of bring everything together when you're answering a question. Now, having an understanding or an idea of what your future goals are, mind you, don't be worried if you have no idea what you want to do. That is absolutely fine. You'll figure it out at some point. But having an understanding or some sort of idea of what you want to do in the future, you can then use that to tell your interviewer, examiners that you are doing this particular course or this research or this PhD because this is the direction that you're going to want to go in. And that helps to convince them further that this person isn't just here to waste time. They actually have a plan and a trajectory, and by allowing them and accepting them on this program, it's going to prepare them and set them up for their future. The fourth point in terms of preparation is to know your skills and have an understanding of what your skills are at the top of your brain. So when they ask you things like what you can bring to the team, the group, or whatever, you know what you're coming with. An important part that a lot of people fail to understand is it's not just about what the course can give you, but what you can bring to the course, what you can bring to the program, what you can bring to the research group. So know and refresh yourself on your skills, and if there are any particular areas that you need to brush up on in terms of explaining a certain skill set or explaining a certain methodology, make sure you prepare in that sense. And that takes me to the other point. Be cognizant of your weaknesses. We know the typical question, what is one of your weaknesses? But be cognizant of your weaknesses. I'm going to talk about how you can use this to your advantage in the next section of this video, so just keep watching. In terms of knowing your weaknesses, it shows them that you're an honest person and honest with yourself and would be able to identify skills that you yourself have to work on. My other preparation tip would be to research, whether it be the lecturers, your potential supervisor, the research group, and the department. This will give you a better understanding of who you're speaking with. So if you know who your interviewers are, if you know who your supervisor is going to be, do a bit of searching on what their research area is. With that information, you can then highlight research areas that they're doing that you're interested in pursuing, whether it be in your master's or a PhD thesis, and really showing them how the synergy between their work and what you want to do exists. Doing a bit of research on the research group, which is more particularly tailored for PhD research. This is important because you'll get an understanding of what everybody in the group is doing. Part of research and being a research student is collaborating and doing papers and research with others. So you would be able to then, in your interview, if asked a certain question, shape your response to say what you can contribute to the group and the type of research that is being conducted in that group. This will allow you to show your team working and networking skills as well. The next point is to read and prepare any materials that have been sent to you, whether that is department guidelines or anything that has come in that email that says we've taken you to the next step and given you an interview. Make sure you read that material, and from that material make note of any questions that you have. And that takes me into my final preparation point, which is to prepare questions for your interview panel. Now, a few questions you can ask, especially for PhDs, is around funding, is around the resources that will be available to you, when they expect you to start, and those types of questions. But make sure that you prepare any material that they've given to you, and you refresh yourself on the material that you have submitted, bearing in mind mostly your motivations, your research proposal, and the skills that you have. So my final point now is to actually practice and prepare for questions. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about how you can answer and how you should try to respond to interview questions. Now, I've said in the beginning, it's really about pulling everything together. All the research and preparation you've done in the steps above, you're going to take all that information and package it in a way that it just doesn't seem random, but it all comes together to form that one package that is you, that candidate who should be eligible and who should be accepted in the program. In practicing your questions, I want to introduce you to the STAR framework, STAR. Situation, task, action, and result. Now, this is a very good framework to answer those situation judgment questions, but it also presents a framework for how you could answer any question, really. So what the STAR framework is, for example, a very popular question that you tend to get in interviews is, tell us about a challenging experience or when you had to deal with conflict. And your situation may be, I was doing group work and we had some conflict. My role was to do the research on this particular area. And then the action would be, but because there was the conflict, I took it upon myself to do X, Y, Z. And then the result, which is very important, I think is a key point in bringing everything together, is where you say what you've learned from the situation, or in the sense of the other questions, bring it together to say how it's relevant. I would say results are relevant to the program that you're doing and your acceptance and why you should be accepted, but also within the context of other questions. For example, what inspired you to do a PhD program? So the situation would be what your background is, what your motivation is. So for me, it would be, I was growing up in the Caribbean. That's my situation. Growing up in the Caribbean, as I was exposed to the impacts of climate change, and that left a lasting impression on me, and I wanted to make a difference in terms of contributing to the solutions that are out there. And then you bring it back to your research question now, and that is why I decided to pursue research on this particular topic, XYZ. That's the framework I tend to use to answer questions. The STAR framework really helps take all the information that you have prepared and bring it together to sell the point that you deserve to be in the program. And it does that by really bringing several things together, which is what motivates you, why you need to be here, how are your skills or your background, how are they going to help you in the program, or how is it going to help you contribute to the research group, and how your experiences have helped you to develop into the researcher, the professional, the person that you are today. For specific situations, it helps to show what you've learned and how you've emerged from that. And I talked about that weakness question. One of the things asked, what is one of your weaknesses? And I tend to use procrastination, I think we all do. And then you flip that in your favor to say it helps you work under pressure. And more importantly, when you bring all that together, you shape it in the context of you being accepted and why you're the most suitable candidate for the funding, for the program, for that course. So I hope that video was helpful for you. If you are interested in me going a bit more in depth with some research questions, please let me know down below. But I do also share tips over on my Instagram, so you can check that out. Here it's mariab_ph diary, where you can get more tips there and see me more on my day-to-day life. So again, as I said, prepare and use that STAR framework to answer your questions. Make sure that you have enough confidence because you have already gotten this far in the application process. It's just left for you to put that final seal and tell them why you are that suitable candidate to be accepted. So remember, prepare, know your motivations, and ensure that when you answer your questions, they all shape back to answering that one question, which is, why are you suitable? Alright, bye-bye, and see you in the next video.